Blake Harrison, a man who exuded confidence and success, had everything money could buy: lavish mansions, exotic cars, and the admiration of those who basked in his aura. At 35, as the CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the United States, his life seemed to be the pinnacle of achievement. Yet for Blake, the world was a game he always won. Power and control were his currency, and his peers often marveled at his unshakable self-assurance. One unassuming Saturday, Blake found himself at a McDonald's, an ironic retreat with his friends who were entertained by the novelty of experiencing a slice of ordinary life. Sitting in a corner booth, they laughed over burgers and fries, their conversation peppered with inside jokes and boasts. Among them was Caleb Turner, Blake's closest friend and occasional rival, who leaned back with a mischievous grin. "You've done it all, Blake," Caleb said, taking a bite of his burger. "Made millions, won over anyone you wanted. But I doubt you can win this next bet." Blake's eyes sparkled with intrigue. "I'm listening." Caleb pointed discreetly to Rachel Miller, a waitress clearing tables nearby. "I bet you can't marry her. A single mom working here at McDonald's. No tricks, no contracts. It has to be real." Blake smirked. "That's it? Easy money." Caleb raised the stakes, not just for the money. "Do it, and I'll double down. $2 million. For Blake, it wasn't about the money. It was about the challenge. Rachel's unassuming demeanor, her quiet resolve, and the apparent wariness in her eyes piqued his curiosity. She was so far removed from his world that she might as well have been from another planet. With a confident smile, he raised his soda cup. Challenge accepted. Rachel Miller was no stranger to hard work. At 28, she juggled her job at McDonald's with raising her 5-year-old daughter, Chloe. Every day was a battle to make ends meet, but Rachel faced it with quiet strength, determined to give her daughter the life she deserved. She barely noticed the man sitting at the corner table that Saturday, his tailored suit out of place among the casual diners. When Blake approached her, she was caught off guard by his charm. "Rachel, right?" he asked, his smile disarming. "I'm Blake." "Can I help you with something?" she replied, her tone neutral. "I was just thinking we should grab a coffee sometime," Blake said. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "I'm working." "Not now," Blake clarified. "But on your day off." She hesitated, skeptical of his intentions. "I don't have time for games." Blake smiled, undeterred. "I'm persistent. You'll find that out." Rachel gave a polite nod and returned to work, brushing off his advances. But for Blake, the challenge had only just begun. In the following weeks, Blake returned to McDonald's regularly, each time trying a different approach. Slowly, Rachel began to soften. She was wary of his world, but his persistence and curiosity about her life intrigued her. When she finally agreed to a coffee date, it marked the first step in a journey neither of them could have anticipated. Over coffee, Blake learned about Chloe, Rachel's dreams for her daughter, and the sacrifices she made daily. Her resilience humbled him, challenging his preconceived notions about success and fulfillment. For the first time, he found himself drawn not to a challenge, but to a person. As their coffee dates turned into long conversations, Blake's world began to shift. Rachel wasn't swayed by his wealth or status. She valued authenticity, and her straightforward nature forced Blake to confront his own motivations. What started as a bet now felt like something deeper. Months passed, and Blake proposed, offering Rachel not just a ring but a promise of a better future for her and Chloe. Rachel was hesitant. She worried about the vast differences in their lives and how it would affect Chloe. But Blake's earnestness won her over. With a mix of hope and uncertainty, she accepted. Their marriage brought Rachel into a world she could never have imagined. A mansion with towering ceilings, glittering chandeliers, and staff at her beck and call. Yet she felt out of place, struggling to adjust to Blake's lifestyle. Chloe, on the other hand, delighted in the newfound luxury, her laughter echoing through the grand halls. Blake, too, was navigating uncharted territory. For all his wealth and power, he realized that connecting with Rachel and Chloe required more than grand gestures. It required vulnerability, patience, and a willingness to see the world through their eyes. One evening, as Chloe sat on Blake's lap, showing him her crayon drawings, he felt a warmth he had never experienced before. Rachel watched from the doorway, her heart softening at the sight of her daughter bonding with the man she had grown to care for. In time, their marriage evolved from a bet into a partnership. Blake learned to appreciate the simple joys of life: a family dinner, a bedtime story, a walk in the park. Rachel, in turn, began to trust Blake, seeing the genuine effort he put into being a husband and father. 1 year later, Caleb visited the couple, expecting to see the fallout of what he had assumed was a temporary arrangement. Instead, he found a happy family. Chloe greeted him with a drawing. Rachel laughed with ease, and Blake looked more at peace than ever. Caleb pulled Blake aside. "You've surprised me, man. This isn't what I expected." Blake smiled. "Neither did I." Caleb handed him a check for $2 million. "You earned it." Blake shook his head, pushing the check back. "Keep it. I got something much better." As Caleb watched Blake return to Rachel and Chloe, he realized the truth. Blake had won something far more valuable than a bet. He had found love, purpose, and a family. The story of Blake and Rachel is a testament to the power of stepping outside your comfort zone and embracing the unexpected. It reminds us that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the relationships and experiences that enrich our lives. A world reimagined. Rachel adjusted her life with care, learning to navigate the vast expanse of Blake's mansion and the unspoken expectations that came with it. Yet she clung to her humility, teaching Chloe to value kindness over possessions, even as the little girl twirled in dresses fit for a princess. Rachel's apprehension lingered, her heart tethered to a world of simpler truths that the grandeur around her couldn't overshadow. Blake, on the other hand, was discovering the cracks in his once impenetrable life. His office, a fortress of glass and steel, seemed smaller each time he returned to Rachel and Chloe. Success, once his ultimate conquest, felt hollow when compared to the glow in Chloe's eyes as she showed him her latest crayon masterpiece, or the sound of Rachel's laugh when he stumbled over one of her family recipes in the kitchen. But there were challenges, as there always are when two vastly different worlds collide. A tenuous balance. Blake's social circle, accustomed to elite stories and whispered deals, viewed Rachel with a polite but evident skepticism. They questioned Blake's choice, sometimes with veiled disdain, other times with overt disbelief. One evening, at a charity gala filled with glittering chandeliers and champagne flutes, Rachel stood at Blake's side, dressed in an elegant gown he had chosen for her. Though she looked every bit the part, she felt out of place, her smile wavering as whispers rippled through the crowd. "Isn't she the waitress?" a woman murmured behind her hand. "She's lucky," another said, a tinge of condescension in her tone. Rachel heard every word, and Blake noticed her discomfort. For the first time, he understood the weight of his world pressing down on her. His usual confidence faltered, replaced by a pang of guilt. This wasn't the life Rachel had chosen. She had chosen him, and he needed to prove that her choice wasn't in vain. The growing rift. Despite their efforts, tensions began to rise. Rachel felt increasingly like an outsider in Blake's world, while Blake struggled to bridge the gap between his high-powered life and the simplicity Rachel valued. Arguments flared over seemingly small things: his constant travel, her reluctance to embrace his lifestyle, the whispered judgments of others. "You don't get it, Blake," Rachel said one evening, her voice tight with frustration. "I didn't marry you for your money or your mansion. I married you because I thought there was something real between us. But sometimes I feel like I'm just a project to you." Blake froze, her words cutting deeper than he expected. "That's not fair, Rachel. I'm trying." "Trying isn't enough when I don't even know where I fit in your life," she replied, tears welling in her eyes. And what about Chloe? What kind of example are we setting if we're just pretending this works? Blake wanted to argue, but he couldn't. She was right. He had focused so much on winning her over that he hadn't stopped to think about what it would take to truly make their lives work together. The turning point. The breaking point came during one of Blake's work trips. While he was in New York for a major acquisition deal, Rachel received a call from Chloe's school. Her daughter had fallen and broken her arm, and Rachel rushed to the hospital alone, terrified and overwhelmed. For the first time since their marriage, Rachel felt the full weight of being a single parent again, despite her new last name. When Blake returned the next day, he found Rachel in Chloe's room, sitting by her daughter's bedside with a haunted look in her eyes. "Why weren't you here?" she asked, her voice trembling but quiet. Blake opened his mouth to speak but stopped himself. He had no excuse that could erase the hurt in her eyes. Instead, he knelt beside her, taking her hand in his. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking. "I should have been here. For you. For Chloe." Rachel didn't respond immediately, but she didn't pull her hand away either. Blake realized then that his success, his money, and his charm meant nothing if he couldn't be there for the people who mattered most. A new beginning. From that day forward, Blake began to change, not as a man trying to win a bet, but as a husband and father trying to build a family. He started turning down trips, delegating responsibilities, and prioritizing time with Rachel and Chloe. He took Chloe to school in the mornings, learned to cook Rachel's favorite meals, though his attempts were often laughably bad, and even volunteered at Chloe's school events. Rachel, too, began to let down her guard. She saw Blake's efforts not as grand gestures, but as genuine attempts to connect with the life she cherished. She started to believe that their marriage could work, not because of his wealth, but because of his willingness to change. Together, they worked to merge their worlds. Rachel introduced Blake to her small-town roots, taking him to local fairs and family gatherings where he swapped his tailored suits for jeans and t-shirts. Blake showed Rachel the beauty of his world. Not the wealth, but the opportunities it could create. Together, they started a foundation to help single parents like Rachel, combining his resources with her insight. A family rewritten. One sunny afternoon, Blake stood in the backyard of their home, now filled with laughter and warmth. Chloe was running around with her friends, her cast decorated with colorful drawings, while Rachel set out plates of food for a family barbecue. Blake watched her from a distance, marveling at how much his life had changed. The mansion no longer felt cold and empty. It was a home. And Rachel, the woman he had once pursued as part of a bet, had become his anchor, his partner, and his greatest challenge. As Rachel caught him staring, she walked over with a playful smile. "What are you thinking about?" Blake took her hand, his expression soft. "How lucky I am." Rachel rolled her eyes but smiled back. "You say that now, but wait until you taste the potato salad." They both laughed, the sound carrying into the golden afternoon. The lesson. Blake's story wasn't just about a man who married a waitress on a dare. It was about a man who discovered the true meaning of wealth, not in his bank account, but in the people he chose to share his life with. Rachel taught him the value of authenticity, resilience, and love that wasn't tied to material things. And Rachel learned, too. She discovered that sometimes people can surprise you, that even the most unlikely partnerships can create something extraordinary when built on trust, effort, and mutual respect. Their journey wasn't perfect, but it was real. And in the end, that made all the difference. Building bridges. The fusion of Blake and Rachel's worlds brought joy. But it wasn't without its challenges. Their love grew stronger, yet the weight of their contrasting lifestyles tested their resolve daily. Rachel, with her small-town values and practical approach to life, sometimes clashed with Blake's high-powered ambitions and connections to a world of luxury. However, their shared commitment to making their family work served as the glue that held them together. As Chloe adjusted to her new life, Blake found himself stepping more deeply into the role of a father figure. Yet the road to earning Chloe's full trust was not as smooth as he had hoped. A father's struggle. One Saturday, Blake decided to spend the entire day with Chloe. Determined to bond with her, he planned an extravagant outing, a private yacht trip along the coast with catered meals, entertainment, and even a magician for Chloe's amusement. But the minute he revealed the plan, Chloe's face fell. "Do we have to?" she asked quietly, clutching her favorite stuffed bunny. Blake, caught off guard, asked, "What's wrong? I thought you'd love it." Chloe hesitated, then looked at her mom. Rachel gently intervened. "Blake, she's not used to all this. Maybe start smaller." Feeling a pang of guilt, Blake canceled the yacht trip and instead spent the day with Chloe at a nearby park. They fed ducks, played on the swings, and had a picnic with sandwiches Chloe helped make. By the end of the day, Chloe clung to Blake's hand as they walked back to the car. "Can we do this again tomorrow?" she asked, her eyes lighting up. Blake smiled, realizing that the simplest gestures often had the most profound impact. It was a lesson he carried with him. Not everything had to be grand. What mattered was being present. Rachel's quiet strength. Meanwhile, Rachel faced her own struggles. Living in Blake's world came with unspoken expectations, and she often found herself under the microscope. Whether it was a charity dinner or a social gathering, her every word and action were scrutinized. One evening, Blake's company hosted an event to celebrate a groundbreaking technological advancement. The guest list included influential figures, celebrities, and media personalities. Rachel, wearing a dress Blake had bought for her, felt the weight of their judgmental gazes as soon as they arrived. "You're doing great," Blake whispered, squeezing her hand reassuringly. But Rachel wasn't so sure. She navigated the room cautiously, overhearing snide remarks disguised as compliments. "She's charming, isn't she?" "So, down to earth," one woman said with a knowing smirk. Rachel fought the urge to retreat. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and approached a group of guests with a genuine smile. She shared stories about her experiences as a single mom, her time at McDonald's, and her love for her daughter. By the end of the night, several guests were captivated by her authenticity. When Blake found her later, she was surrounded by people laughing at a story she had told. He watched her with admiration, realizing that Rachel's strength didn't come from fitting in but from standing out. The foundation of hope. As their relationship deepened, Blake and Rachel decided to use their unique perspectives to create something meaningful together. Inspired by Rachel's experiences and Blake's resources, they launched a foundation dedicated to supporting single parents and their children. The foundation provided scholarships, childcare services, and career training for single parents seeking a fresh start. Rachel, serving as the foundation's spokesperson, shared her story at events, inspiring others to persevere through hardships. During one event, Rachel stood on stage, addressing a packed auditorium. "I was once a single mom, working long hours at McDonald's, and wondering if life would ever get easier. I didn't know then that my struggles would lead me here, to a place where I can help others find hope and opportunity." The audience erupted in applause, and Blake, sitting in the front row with Chloe on his lap, couldn't have been prouder. An unexpected reunion. One day, as Rachel and Chloe were volunteering at a shelter supported by their foundation, a familiar face appeared. It was Caleb Turner, the man who had initiated the bet that started everything. "Caleb," Rachel said, surprised but not unkind. "What brings you here?" Caleb looked sheepish. "I heard about the work you and Blake are doing. I wanted to see it for myself." Rachel studied him for a moment, then smiled. "You're welcome to help. We could always use another set of hands." Caleb spent the day stacking boxes and interacting with families at the shelter. By the end, he approached Rachel with a newfound respect. "I never imagined this is where the bet would lead. You've built something incredible." "It's not just me," Rachel said, glancing at Blake, who was helping Chloe hand out backpacks to children. "We built it together." Caleb nodded, humbled by the genuine connection he saw between Rachel and Blake. I owe you both an apology. I started all of this as a joke, but you turned it into something real. Something beautiful." Rachel gave him a forgiving smile. Sometimes, even the most unexpected beginnings can lead to the best endings. A family forged in love. As the years passed, the Harrison family grew closer, not just through shared experiences, but through mutual growth. Blake became a hands-on father, showing up for Chloe in ways he never thought he could. Rachel, once skeptical of their relationship, found herself falling more deeply in love with Blake as he consistently proved his commitment. One evening, as they sat around a fire pit in their backyard, Chloe asked, "Mom, how did you and Blake meet?" Rachel exchanged a glance with Blake, a knowing smile on her lips. "It's a long story, sweetheart. Tell me." Chloe insisted, her eyes wide with curiosity. Blake chuckled. "Well, let's just say it started with a little bit of persistence and a whole lot of luck." As Chloe giggled, Rachel leaned into Blake's shoulder, feeling a warmth that no mansion or fortune could ever provide. The legacy of love. Blake and Rachel's story became more than a tale of two opposites attracting. It became a testament to the transformative power of love, humility, and persistence. Together, they redefined what it meant to be a family, proving that the best partnerships are built not on convenience or similarity, but on the willingness to grow, adapt, and support each other. Their journey wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And as they faced each new challenge, they did so with the confidence that love, and a little bit of humor, could overcome anything. Strength in the storm. As Blake and Rachel settled into a rhythm, life began to feel more balanced. The mansion was no longer an imposing reminder of their differences, but a warm home filled with love and laughter. Chloe blossomed in the supportive environment, and the foundation they built continued to change lives. Yet life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. One fateful morning, while Blake was preparing breakfast, a skill he had taken pride in learning for Rachel and Chloe, his assistant called with urgent news. A hostile takeover bid had been launched against his company. Blake's empire, the very cornerstone of his identity, was under siege. The first cracks. Blake buried himself in work, spending long hours at the office and intense boardroom meetings. The strain was palpable, and Rachel could see the stress etching deeper lines into his face. She tried to be supportive, preparing his favorite meals, sitting with him in the late hours while he pored over documents, and reassuring him that they would get through it together. But the pressure began to take its toll. Blake's patience wore thin, and his usual calm demeanor gave way to frustration. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, he snapped at Rachel over something trivial. "I'm trying to hold everything together, and I don't need this right now," he shouted. Rachel, hurt but composed, replied, "Blake, I'm not the enemy. I'm trying to help you." Blake immediately regretted his outburst, but Rachel walked away, her silence more telling than any words. For the first time since their marriage, a distance began to grow between them, a test of unity. As the weeks dragged on, the situation worsened. Blake's company was on the brink of collapse, and the media swarmed like vultures, eager to report on the downfall of a once mighty titan. Rachel became a target too, with tabloids questioning her influence on Blake and suggesting she was a distraction. "Is this what you signed up for?" Blake asked one night, his voice heavy with guilt as they sat in the quiet of their living room. This chaos, the judgment, the uncertainty. Rachel took his hand, her gaze steady. "I didn't marry your company, Blake. I married you. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Her words brought him some solace, but the weight of his responsibilities remained. Blake struggled to reconcile his identity as a powerful CEO with the vulnerability he now felt. A moment of clarity. One afternoon, Rachel made a bold decision. She brought Chloe to Blake's office, disrupting his usual routine. When he looked up from his desk, startled, Chloe ran to him with a drawing in hand. "Daddy, look. I drew this for you," she said, holding up a picture of their family. Blake's heart ached as he took the drawing. In the chaos of trying to save his company, he had lost sight of what truly mattered. He realized that his worth wasn't tied to his success or failure as a businessman. It was tied to the family he had built. Later that evening, Blake apologized to Rachel. "I've been so consumed by this fight that I forgot what I was fighting for. I don't want to lose us." Rachel smiled, her eyes filled with understanding. "We're not going anywhere, Blake, but you have to let us in. We're stronger together." Fighting back. With renewed determination, Blake approached the takeover battle differently. He sought advice from Rachel, whose practicality and grounded perspective helped him see solutions he hadn't considered. He also reached out to Caleb, who, despite their rocky past, was a savvy businessman with insights into the corporate world. Together, they crafted a strategy that not only thwarted the takeover, but also strengthened the company's position in the market. Blake's employees, inspired by his resilience and transparency, rallied behind him, proving that loyalty wasn't just about paychecks, but about trust and leadership. When the dust settled, Blake emerged victorious, not because of his own efforts alone, but because he had finally learned to lean on the people around him. A celebration of love. To mark the end of a tumultuous chapter, Rachel suggested hosting a community event through their foundation. It was a celebration not just of their success, but of the resilience they had witnessed in others and in themselves. The event was held in the backyard of their home, a sprawling space transformed into a lively gathering filled with food, music, and laughter. Families supported by the foundation shared their stories, and Blake and Rachel took the stage together to thank everyone for their support. Standing under the twinkling string lights, Blake addressed the crowd. "This past year has tested me in ways I never imagined. I nearly lost everything that mattered. My company, my confidence, and even my sense of purpose. But what pulled me through wasn't my wealth or my ambition. It was the love and support of my wife, Rachel, and my daughter, Chloe." He turned to Rachel, his voice softening. "You've taught me that real strength isn't about facing challenges alone. It's about facing them together. Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Rachel, moved by his words, kissed him as the crowd erupted into cheers. A legacy of hope. Blake and Rachel's journey became an inspiration to many, proving that love and perseverance could overcome even the toughest obstacles. Their foundation expanded, opening centers across the country and providing thousands of single parents with the tools to rebuild their lives. Chloe grew up witnessing the power of resilience and compassion, carrying those values into her own life. And Blake, once defined by his success, found fulfillment not in his wealth, but in the love of his family and the impact they made together. In the end, their story wasn't about a millionaire marrying a waitress or a bet that changed everything. It was about two people from different worlds finding common ground, weathering life's storms, and building a future that was richer than either of them had ever imagined. The ripple effect. Years passed, and the Harrison family's story became a beacon of hope for many. Blake and Rachel had proven that love could transcend barriers, and that resilience could turn even the most challenging situations into opportunities for growth. Their foundation flourished, but more importantly, their family bond grew stronger with each passing day. Yet, life, as it often does, was about to throw them a new challenge, one that would test their legacy in ways they never anticipated. A new vision. Blake had always been a visionary, and his success in business stemmed from his ability to think beyond the obvious. With the foundation thriving, he began to see an even greater potential for impact. Instead of just supporting single parents, he envisioned creating an ecosystem where families could thrive. Affordable housing projects, free childcare facilities, and job training centers that would empower individuals to break cycles of poverty. "I want to create something bigger, Rachel," Blake shared one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sun set over their backyard. "Not just donations or programs. I want to build communities that give people a real chance." Rachel listened intently, her hand resting on his. "It's ambitious, Blake, but if anyone can do it, we can. Their conversations turned into plans, and soon, the foundation began working on its most ambitious project yet, a pilot community designed to provide a safe haven for single parents and their children. It would offer not just housing but also schools, healthcare facilities, and vocational training programs. The cost of ambition. The project's scope and scale drew significant attention. Media outlets praised the initiative, but not everyone supported it. Critics questioned Blake's motives, accusing him of using philanthropy as a publicity stunt to rebuild his corporate image after the takeover battle. Blake brushed off the criticism, but Rachel sensed the toll it took on him. Late-night meetings and constant scrutiny began to weigh on their family life. Chloe, now a teenager, voiced her concerns one evening. "Dad, why are you always so busy?" she asked, her voice tinged with frustration. "You say family is important, but it feels like you're never here anymore." Blake was taken aback, realizing that his focus on the project had once again distanced him from the very people he was trying to support. Rachel stepped in, gently but firmly. "Blake, this is a wonderful vision, but don't let it come at the cost of the life we've built here." He nodded, understanding their concerns. "You're right. I'll make more time for us." Balancing his ambitious plans with his family's needs became a delicate dance, but Blake was determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. An unexpected ally. One day, while visiting the construction site of the pilot community, Blake encountered a woman named Linda, a former beneficiary of the foundation. Linda had been a single mother who, with the foundation's help, had completed her education and started her own small business. Now, she was volunteering to help others. "Mr. Harrison," Linda said, her eyes brimming with gratitude, "I can't thank you and Rachel enough for what you've done for me and my son. I'm here because I want to give back." Blake was moved by her words. He invited Linda to join the project's leadership team, recognizing her first-hand experience as invaluable. Linda's involvement brought a fresh perspective and a deeper connection to the community they were building. She became an advocate for the parents they aimed to help, ensuring their voices were heard at every stage. Facing the storm. As the pilot community neared completion, disaster struck. A massive storm swept through the region, causing significant damage to the construction site and delaying the project by months. The setback was devastating, and the media was quick to criticize. Blake Harrison's dream project turns into a nightmare. One headline read, "Blake felt the weight of the world on his shoulders." He sat in his office late one night, staring at the plans and wondering if they had taken on more than they could handle. Rachel found him there, her presence grounding him as always. "Blake," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We've faced storms before, literal and figurative. This isn't the end. It's just another challenge." Her words reignited his determination. The next day, Blake rallied his team, including Linda and Rachel, and together they devised a plan to recover. Volunteers from the community poured in to help rebuild, and donations surged as people were inspired by their resilience. A community reborn. Months later, the pilot community officially opened its doors. Families moved into safe, affordable homes, and children attended schools filled with laughter and opportunity. The healthcare center provided free medical services, and vocational programs equipped parents with skills to secure stable jobs. At the grand opening ceremony, Blake stood before the crowd, his voice steady but emotional. "This project is more than a dream come true," he said. "It's proof of what we can achieve when we come together, not as individuals, but as a community. None of this would have been possible without the incredible people who believed in this vision and worked tirelessly to make it a reality." Rachel and Chloe stood beside him, their hands clasped together. Chloe, now old enough to understand the magnitude of her parents' work, beamed with pride. The ripple effect. The success of the pilot community inspired similar projects across the country. Blake and Rachel's foundation became a model for how public and private partnerships could address systemic challenges. Linda, who had risen to a leadership position within the organization, often spoke at events, sharing her story and advocating for those still in need. But the greatest impact wasn't measured in headlines or accolades. It was in the quiet moments. The mother who no longer had to choose between paying rent and buying groceries. The child who could dream of becoming a doctor because they now had access to quality education. The families who found not just stability, but hope. A legacy of love. Years later, as Blake and Rachel sat on their porch watching the sunset, Chloe, now an adult, joined them with a cup of tea in hand. "You know," Chloe said, smiling, "I used to think your story was just about Dad winning a bet. But now I see it was always about something bigger." Blake chuckled, shaking his head. "That bet feels like a lifetime ago." Rachel leaned into him, her voice warm. "It started as a bet, but it became our life, a life we built together." Their journey had been far from perfect, but it was rich with love, growth, and purpose. Together, they had created not just a family, but a legacy that would endure for generations to come. In the end, their story wasn't about how it began, it was about how it evolved, shaped by the choices they made, the people they touched, and the love that carried them through every storm. The next generation of change. Blake and Rachel had built more than a family. They had cultivated a legacy of hope and resilience. Their foundation's impact was felt far and wide, and their lives were enriched by the countless stories of those they had helped. Yet, as they grew older, the question of succession began to linger in their minds. Chloe, now in her early 20s, was at a crossroads in her life. She had inherited her mother's compassion and her father's determination, but was unsure of her own path. For Blake and Rachel, this was an opportunity not only to support their daughter, but also to trust her with the future of what they had built. Chloe's dilemma. Chloe had always been the center of her parents' world, but she often struggled with the weight of their expectations. Growing up in a home where purpose and philanthropy were central, she admired what her parents had accomplished but felt unsure if she could live up to their legacy. One evening, during a family dinner, Blake brought up the topic. "Chloe, have you thought about what you want to do after graduation?" Chloe hesitated, twirling her fork. "I'm not sure, Dad. I love what you and Mom have built, but I don't know if I'm ready to take that on." Rachel reached across the table, placing a comforting hand on Chloe's. "You don't have to decide now, sweetie. But just know, whatever path you choose, we'll support you." Blake added, "And if you want to forge your own path, that's okay too. What matters is that you find something you're passionate about." Chloe nodded, appreciating their reassurance, but the question lingered in her mind. Could she honor their legacy while still finding her own voice? A journey of discovery. Chloe decided to take a gap year to travel and volunteer, hoping to gain clarity about her future. She visited communities her parents' foundation had helped, spending time with families who had benefited from their programs. Along the way, she saw firsthand how her parents' work had transformed lives. In one community, Chloe met Alina, a young woman who had been a single mother living in poverty until she joined the foundation's vocational training program. Now, Alina was a successful entrepreneur, running a small bakery that employed other single mothers. "I never thought I'd have a chance to make something of myself," Alina told Chloe. "Your parents' foundation gave me the tools, but more importantly, it gave me hope." Chloe was deeply moved by these stories. For the first time, she saw not just her parents' work, but also the profound impact it had on real people. It sparked something inside her, a desire to contribute in her own way. Returning home with purpose. When Chloe returned home, she was different, more confident and focused. She sat down with her parents one evening, her eyes bright with determination. "I've made my decision," Chloe said. "I want to be part of the foundation, but I want to do it my way." Blake and Rachel exchanged a glance, their curiosity piqued. "What do you have in mind?" Blake asked. Chloe took a deep breath. "I want to focus on education. Everywhere I went, I saw how access to education made the biggest difference in breaking the cycle of poverty. I want to create programs that make learning accessible for children and adults, especially in underserved communities." Rachel smiled, pride shining in her eyes. That's a beautiful idea, Chloe. And it's exactly what this foundation needs, a fresh perspective. Blake nodded. We've always said the foundation should evolve with the times. If this is where your heart is, we'll back you all the way. Chloe's vision. Under Chloe's leadership, the foundation launched an initiative called Tomorrow's Promise, a program dedicated to education. It included scholarships, digital literacy training, and mobile learning centers that traveled to remote areas. Chloe also partnered with tech companies to provide free tablets and internet access, ensuring that children in disadvantaged areas could continue learning even during school closures. Her innovative approach drew attention, and soon, Tomorrow's Promise became one of the foundation's most impactful programs. Chloe often traveled to these communities, spending time with children and families, listening to their needs, and adapting the program to meet their challenges. The torch is passed. One day, as Blake watched Chloe deliver a speech at a conference, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. His once carefully orchestrated world had been redefined by the love and resilience of his wife and daughter. Rachel, sitting beside him, squeezed his hand, their unspoken bond conveying the same pride. She's incredible, isn't she? Blake whispered. Rachel smiled. She gets it from you, and a little from me too. After the event, Chloe joined her parents, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Did I do okay? You did more than okay, Blake said, pulling her into a hug. You're doing something extraordinary, Chloe. You're making a difference. Rachel added, and you're doing it your way, which makes us even prouder. A future full of promise. As the years passed, Chloe continued to grow the foundation, adding her own ideas and innovations while honoring the values her parents had instilled in her. Blake and Rachel gradually stepped back, confident that the legacy they had built was in good hands. Their story became a family legacy, proving that true success isn't just about wealth or achievements. It's about the lives you touch, the love you nurture, and the impact you leave behind. One quiet evening, as the family sat together on the porch, Chloe spoke up. Do you ever think about how it all started? A bet over a cup of coffee. Blake laughed, shaking his head. It's hard to believe, isn't it? Rachel leaned into him, her voice filled with warmth. It started with a bet, but it became something so much more. Chloe smiled, her gaze drifting to the horizon. I think it's the perfect story, because it shows that even the smallest moments can lead to something extraordinary. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the Harrison family looked ahead to a future full of promise, united by love, purpose, and the belief that every challenge is just the beginning of a new story. A full circle of gratitude. As Blake and Rachel entered the twilight years of their lives, they often reflected on the journey that had brought them together. What began as a bet, a fleeting whim fueled by ego and challenge, had blossomed into a life rich with meaning, connection, and love. Their family had become a testament to the power of transformation, not just personal transformation, but the ripple effect of choosing kindness, authenticity, and resilience. The final celebration. To commemorate the Foundation's 25th anniversary, Chloe organized a gala that brought together families, donors, volunteers, and supporters from across the years. The event wasn't held in a grand ballroom, but in the heart of the first pilot community Blake and Rachel had built. The venue was filled with laughter, music, and stories of triumph. During the evening, Chloe invited her parents to the stage. Blake, with Rachel at his side, took a deep breath before speaking to the crowd. Tonight, I stand before you, not as the man who built a company, but as a man who has been blessed to share his life with people who showed me what truly matters, Blake began. Rachel, you were my unexpected gift, my anchor, and my greatest teacher. Chloe, you are the embodiment of our hopes and dreams, carrying forward a legacy we could only imagine. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Success isn't about what you gain for yourself. It's about what you give to others. It's about creating a world where everyone has the chance to rise, just as you all have helped me rise. The audience erupted into applause, and Chloe took the microphone next. This foundation is not just a reflection of my parents' journey, but of every single person here. It's proof that even the smallest acts of kindness can create waves of change. Together, we've shown that love, resilience, and hope can overcome any obstacle. As the applause faded, Rachel added softly, "And it all started with a bet, a cup of coffee, and a little courage to step into the unknown." The lesson. The Harrison family's story became a symbol of the unexpected paths life can take when we approach challenges with open hearts. It taught that growth is a choice. No matter how far apart two worlds may seem, love and effort can bridge the gap. Success is shared. True fulfillment comes not from personal gain, but from lifting others along the way. Every moment matters. A single decision, even one made on a whim, can lead to a lifetime of purpose and connection. Blake, Rachel, and Chloe reminded the world that our greatest stories often come from the most unlikely beginnings, a quiet legacy. In their final years, Blake and Rachel lived quietly in the home that had once seemed so vast and empty, but now overflowed with memories. Chloe carried their legacy forward with grace, ensuring the foundation continued to thrive. On the rare occasions they spoke of the bet, it was with laughter and gratitude, not for how it started, but for what it became. One sunny afternoon, as Blake and Rachel sat hand in hand on their porch, Rachel turned to him with a soft smile. "Do you ever wish we'd met under different circumstances?" Blake chuckled, shaking his head. "No. Every twist, every turn, every challenge, it brought us here. I wouldn't change a thing." Rachel nodded, her eyes glistening. "Neither would I." And so, surrounded by the love they had built, the lessons they had learned, and the legacy they had created, Blake and Rachel embraced the beauty of a life well lived, proving that every story, no matter how it begins, has the potential to become extraordinary. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.